Well, I want to say welcome back to the Holistic Entrepreneur, but truthfully, we're still in the inception zone. You are likely brand new. You're going to see this titled as episode 19, and it's because I've done a rebrand. So if you're new, which like I said, you probably are, go back to episode 18 of the Holistic Entrepreneur. That's the first episode launch of the rebrand into what this podcast is now, the Holistic Entrepreneur, and you can get a really good understanding for what this podcast is about, who I am and why I'm starting it, and what you can expect throughout the show. So go back there. It's a quick 25-minute listen. Hopefully it's entertaining. And now come back to this episode. So I want to talk a little bit about the structure, because when we dive into the concept of holistic entrepreneurship, there's just so many different directions we can take. There's so much nugget of information, and over time, we're going to cover it all. But to get the show ramped up and really going, I want to have some structure, and that looks like themed episodes. So what I'm going to be doing in the first 2 to 3 months of the show at the very least is I'm going to have groupings of episodes that all fall within the same theme. Each episode is going to have its own guest that is an expert in that field in some sort of way, and they are also an entrepreneur and can speak to both the theme and entrepreneurship. And we will get a very well-rounded perspective of this theme. What I'm going to do is start out with a solo episode, which is what you're listening to right now. So the solo episode, I'm going to introduce the theme to you, give you my 2 cents, and then in the 2 to 3 episodes coming up, we will have the individual guest speakers, because in those episodes, I really want to leave the space to just let them answer questions and let them give their expertise. And so I'm diverting my personal opinion to my solo episode. Again, you're listening to it right now. The first theme is going to be physical wellness. Now, again, every single episode is going to also talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about business. That's always going to be a theme of the show. The guests will always have some sort of flavor in the world of entrepreneurship. But we also are talking about the holistic part, which is how do we fill our own cup first? How do we understand that we are whole human beings that need to be nurtured and addressed and prioritized, and that is important to the domino effect and the positive flow going into your business? Okay, this is going to be the concept throughout. Physical wellness is the first theme, which is a very big, broad statement, because we can go into so many different aspects or modalities or opinions of physical wellness. Over time, we'll do that, but we're starting very broad. We're going to have 3 guests in this theme. Again, each will have their own episode. So we're going to hear from Shauna Hart, who has her own business running a gym and an online fitness offering that was sprouted out of COVID. So there's always doors that open. And then we're going to hear from Christy Cuellar, who is a physical therapist and also has a business in dry needling, which is very specific and unique and interesting. And then we're going to hear from Tyler Ippoliti, which also happens to be my fiance. And he has been in the world of personal training for over a decade and ran his own personal training business for about that long and has his own story to tell. So we'll hear from the 3 of those human beings that definitely, in my opinion, hold the torch of the holistic entrepreneur. I think that these 3 people, they're all very close to me. They're really good friends. They're obviously my fiance, and I admire them as what I believe a holistic entrepreneur to be. They're going to tell you a little bit about what they think that means as well. I think these are going to be really juicy episodes, so stay back every week, come back every week as we launch those. So what I want to do is talk about this first theme of physical wellness, and why is that the first theme that we're diving into in this podcast? Well, when I think about a whole human, I think about how can we find wellness. I think of that as one of the first pathways of thought. And when I think about wellness, one of those big categories is physical wellness. And I also think a lot of people gravitate when they're thinking, man, and I'm going to make a very broad, vague statement, but man, when I'm feeling unwell and I want to get well, what are one of the first things I think about when I'm thinking, how can I get more well? I believe most people gravitate to physical wellness, physical well-being, exercising. going to the gym. I think that's the first thing that a lot of people gravitate to. And that may not be everyone's journey. That might not be the best place for everyone to start, but I think it's very common. And that's why we're going to start with it in the series of the podcast episodes. I want to talk a little bit about my experience of physical wellness and what my journey's been and my 2 cents on how it's been important and what I've learned from it. And this is going to be my opportunity to share my opinion on things. So here we go. When I was in high school, I played sports, but I wouldn't have considered myself as a sporty person. I definitely have always mostly gravitated to being an artsy person, a very creative person. However, I did play sports. I played lacrosse, and I wasn't half bad. Half the time I played goalie, the other half the time I played attack wing, and my teammates called me a gazelle because I was one of the fastest runners on the team. And that was probably when I was the most physically fit in my life, when I was 16 to 18 years old. After that, when I went to college, working out was not a part of my life at all because it was very contextual to that one sport and that one season. I never really grew up with physical fitness or exercise being an important part of my life. So it wasn't something that it wasn't a habit that I had maintained very well or that I had a discipline around. So I go to college, I graduate, I start my first couple of years in my corporate life. It wasn't until about 24 years old when I had nothing else to do. I wasn't dating anyone. I had moved away from friends and moved to a new city, didn't know anyone. And I had a long commute to my job and I literally just had nothing better to do. And so I started working out at the gym that we had on campus. I worked at Google at the time, so we had a gym in our building. And before I went home, I just did an hour workout. I tried to do that probably 3 times a week because literally I had nothing better to do. And that would be how I would motivate myself or convince myself to follow through. I'd bring my gym clothes, right? I'd be tired at the end of the day. It'd be better to just go home and relax. But I said to myself, I can go home and literally eat dinner and watch TV and do nothing, or I can just do that same thing and get the workout in too. And then when I met my now fiance, I started dating him. Ironically, the funny thing is that he's a personal trainer, so this is a big part of his life. But because now I had something to do, and by that time I had also started my passion project of what turned into Dandy Roots, which was my handmade business. Around that time, I was starting that as well, so I was spending a lot of my free time making those products, exploring with my recipes and things of that nature. And so all of a sudden, I had something else better to do. And I feel like a lot of us can relate to that, right? Especially when it comes to finding time for physical wellness, working out, going to the gym. We can always find something else that sounds better to do than going to the gym. At least that's my story. And so I've been with him for over 6 years. And I really don't think I can say that I did much working out in that time frame at all, to be honest with you. I mean, very sporadically and inconsistently at best. And I would say whatever you're thinking, probably reduce that by at least half. I didn't really work out very much. And truthfully, I have to say I am gifted with genetics that I don't know what it is. I have a high metabolism. I'm not sure, but my bloodline, we are fairly thin people, the Bachmans. We're all fairly thin. And actually, I would say most of us Bachmans are also fairly not athletic, or we can do it, but we don't identify as very athletic people. My dad is, in his 60s and he's just figuring out he knows the importance of going to the gym, but he's just figuring out how can he do that and show up for himself in that way as he gets older and tries to maintain his body. So it's just not in our awareness. I really was challenged having a romantic partner who worked in physical wellness and saw it as a big value of his to spend time doing that, going to the gym, working out. And I was constantly confronted by his opinion and his values and where I stood. I knew that if I was really going to work out and hit the gym and whatever, that it had to be because I wanted to. It had to be for a deeper purpose that satisfied and fulfilled whatever needs I had, not because I wanted to show up and appease my partner's expectations or my partner's values. And for a long time, that was challenging for him in his own ways. He can speak on that. And it wasn't until this year in May that I got a personal trainer for the first time ever in my life and started going to the gym 3 times a week, an hour each time. And I have been consistently doing that. Let's see, so that's May, June, July, August, September, October. So 6 months now. And I want to talk a little bit about the transformation I've seen and what I've gained from doing this and a little bit of the deeper aspects. But I just want to acknowledge not everyone needs a personal trainer to get started. I think you could find group fitness classes. You could pay for an app. I know one time I spent like $30 and I had this app for like a year. I basically didn't use it, but there are very affordable options out there for finding some sort of accountability. Because for me, the personal trainer was accountability that I knew I needed to get in the flow so that I could transition from being accountable to showing up because I told my personal trainer I would be there to showing up for me because I told myself I would be there. But I needed that help in the beginning. Personal trainers can be a little bit pricey, which is part of the reason why I never had one until I was able to afford it. And so I'm just wanting to acknowledge that I believe there are other ways that we can find accountability. You might find a friend who has a similar goal to you. You can even find free resources on YouTube and things like this. So don't let the cost hold you back. If accountability is what you need, there are so many different ways to find that. But beyond accountability, you also need to have your own purpose. Why do you feel like you need to be spending time nurturing your physical well-being? You need to personally connect to your why. So to that point, one of the other reasons that really turned the needle, turn the coin, I don't know, turn the perspective for me was in, I would say, about a year or so, I'm looking towards having a family, and that means getting pregnant. And so for a woman, that means a lot of like biological, physical changes. And I don't know how my body will be the same or be different after having kids. I think it's fair to say it's not going to be the same. And so part of me wants to really enjoy and appreciate and utilize my body as it is now before that change comes. And that is, for better or worse, something that's strongly motivating me. I've always wanted to have those abs, the nice abs and the nice ass, right? And I want to just be able to enjoy that for myself a little bit before my body changes, and I'm not sure how it'll be after. That's a little bit of a vain reason, but that's the truth. I think a lot of us can probably resonate. Another thing is I do want my body to be healthy as it can be when I approach pregnancy. So I want to try to nurture my body as an environment for a healthy pregnancy. And so that's important to me as well. And also habits. If I can build a habit of training consistently, my physical well-being, going to the gym right now, then when I am pregnant and then when I have babies thereafter, where the energy is going to shift. It's going to be hard, I think, probably to find time for all of this. I will have already built the habit into my daily life. So these are all the reasons that really turned it around for me to show up consistently. And I had some hopes and dreams for what I would get out of it, but after 6 months, a few things that I've noticed and I want to share. I have definitely a lot more confidence in myself. I struggle with bloating, and there's a big nutritional journey I'm on, which is a different topic, a slightly different topic. So I won't dive too much into that, but I struggle with a lot of stomach distension and bloating. And I would say working out and developing the muscle tone has really helped to reduce the bloating and reduce inflammation in my body. And it's given me a lot of confidence. So it's given me a lot of confidence in the clothes that I wear, how I show up. I feel strong. And when I'm walking around, I feel strong. So confidence is a huge thing because, and I just want to highlight, this is literally the point of the show. My next thought. Because I have more confidence in my body, which has stemmed from my commitment to working out physically, that confidence oozes out, bleeds into other areas of my life. So it bleeds into business because I feel more confident as a human being because of the way I look, because of the abs that I have, because of how I feel. that energy is within me. And so it vibrates out into the way that I show up in the world, the way I show up in my business. Okay? So this is literally the point of the show. Show up for yourself, fill your own cup up, see what happens because of that, and see how that bleeds into business. I also honestly have a higher libido. I am someone who doesn't have very high libido. And so that is, I think, probably an interesting conversation we can have in another theme down the road. But I have noticed that because I feel more confident, because I feel stronger, because I feel like I have just more energy running through me, that is, my libido's increased. And that's an area of my life that I feel like I have more energy and interest and desire for. I also feel that I just have a stronger desire to work out more. And so I've built the habit enough where I like the way I feel before and after. I like that I've exerted myself. I've gotten, like, in the beginning, in the first month, I would say I would get really exhausted from a very heavy workout, but now I feel consistent in energy. I feel productive in my day. I feel like I feel very accomplished. So once you can get through the hump, if you're not consistent at all and you're really trying to build a practice, give yourself, I would say, some people say 2-3, I say 3 to 4 weeks before you can really see the turnaround in your energy. So I just wanted to share my story and give some framework for me, because I think storytelling is a great way to connect. Hopefully, whoever's out there listening to this, you resonated with some part of my story. And I'm not perfect, which is why we're having the guests come on. Like, physical wellness is not how I identify as a contributor to society, but I know that it is important. I've been on my own journey exploring its purpose and its value in my life, and I do believe it's important. And so I want to highlight and create conversation for us entrepreneurs out there, where a lot of us I think a lot of people who are entrepreneurs can fall down what I'm about to say, which is, it's easy to spend all your time working on your business. It's easy for me to do that. And I have to consciously say, what is self-care for me? What does that look like today, this week, this month? What habit am I trying to build that's important to me outside of my business? And I have to consciously carve out time for that. It's really easy, if a meeting were to come on my schedule, for me to say, oh, well, I don't have time to work out anymore, which is not true. We always have time for the things we want to prioritize. And I've been practicing prioritizing it in the last 6 months, and I've just seen a lot of benefit. So for those entrepreneurs out there who resonate with this idea that, yeah, I like to pour a lot of my energy into my business, or fill in the blank, and you're feeling like you would like to pour more energy into yourself, into your self-care, into your physical wellness, then please keep listening. The next 3 episodes are going to be a great starting place if you are considering diving into this path. And also, you're going to hear a little bit from these entrepreneurs of how physical wellness, how it has supported themselves as an entrepreneur. Obviously, they're in that industry, but how does it also support themselves from a whole human standpoint? And hopefully they will inspire you to work this into your life, work physical wellness into your life a little bit more. And my hope for everyone is that you will feel inspired, and you'll also just take the time to consider why and how wellness is important to you in your business. Why is it important that you pour into your physical wellness for the sake of your business? That's an interesting question to ask. I'm a big proponent of not just asking yourself the question, but taking some time to answer it. So I hope you find time to do that for yourself today. And I will see you next week with Shauna Hart. We're going to talk all about physical wellness and business. See you then.